Hello, everyone, and welcome to 30 Days of Habits with Whitney Wiley. And today I have with me the incomparable Dave Sanderson. How are you doing, Dave?
Good morning, Whitney. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. I appreciate you taking time out on this Memorial Day to chat with me. And we're going to be talking about your chapter in the One Habit for Success, the Smart Fem Summit Special Edition. And you start your chapter talking about a concept that I don't think I've heard before, or at least not in the way you've described it. You call it a virtual roundtable. What is a virtual roundtable?
Great question, Whitney, because I didn't know what it was until my mentor shared that concept with me. He basically used the word kitchen cabinet. And I think a lot of people know what a kitchen cabinet is, but what I've realized over the last several years is there's people in history that I look up to, and they have tremendous leadership strategies and models. And when he looked at his kitchen cabinet, he's looking at people he got in his own personal world. I expanded that to people who I have my personal world and people who have passed away who have great strategies. So my virtual roundtable is folks and people like Abraham Lincoln, and goes back and look at certain things that great people have done and take that as put that together in my virtual roundtable.
So you mentioned a mentor, but how did you know that you actually needed to have your own roundtable? You've got a mentor in your life. Why add the roundtable?
Well, great question, because one of the principles he taught me over the 14 years he spent with me was that he said you always have to have people around you that can give you candid, solid feedback and with no emotion. And when he was getting up in age, he was in his 70s when I first met him, so he was already up in age. I knew that he probably was going to go someplace later on, that he wouldn't be with me probably the rest of my life. So he encouraged me always to have people around me, not just him, but people around me. So that's how the virtual roundtable came about. And I really was looking at people, like I said, people like Abraham Lincoln or Franklin Roosevelt, who have very unique disciplines and things that they did extremely well that I could learn and adapt from.
So how do you actually go about using someone? I guess I got to understand someone who's still living, but how do you actually go about using the life of someone who's passed? Give us an example of the process and how you would go about doing that.
I'll give you one who is deceased and one who's currently alive.
Okay, cool.
So what I did is, and I just took this strategy Bill gave me from people he was around, is I took different attributes that I wanted to be like. I wanted to model, such as someone who's a financial wizard, or someone who has physically done it, is really strong in the physical aspect or spiritual aspect. And I just went back through history and looked at people that I could look at and say, I really like their mindset. I really like their philosophy. So I started doing a lot of research, such as in my spiritual world. I look at Jesus. I mean, Jesus walked this earth. He was someone who was here. But how could I envision what he did and use that when I need to call on
Right.
spiritually, such as I did on the Miracle on the Hudson that day when I was going down in a plane crash. I needed some spiritual strength that day, and
I bet.
nobody better to call on. So and the
That
same
you
thing with
did.
Abraham Lincoln, leadership in crisis, which I called on that day on the Hudson River. So I looked back in history of people I really admired. And then I looked at people I have had either interaction with or wanted to have interaction with here, who are presently alive. And one of those people happened to be my mentor, Tony Robbins. I was head of security for Tony, for over 10 years. And right now, I think he has amazing mindset. He can
Right.
teach you how to have the mindset that you need to get through anything. So I called upon him, and sometimes when I was challenged, I would call him and say, I need help. So there are people who are alive, people who are deceased, but they all have something to add value in. So I've got like 12 different areas. And when I go to bed at night, one of the things I do is I just ask, tomorrow, can I have the strength to have my virtual roundtable to be with you whatever challenges may face me? And whatever happens, and I can call on that virtual roundtable person.
So I can imagine how this would be an advantage or in addition to, say, a mastermind group. Do you also have a mastermind group or a set of people that you meet with regularly? And how do you meld the two in your life if you do?
Well, that's a great question. I still do have a mastermind group, and they have great wisdom, and they have very unique strengths. Each one of those folks do too, and hopefully I'm adding value to them likewise. I think that's the distinction, Whitney, is in the mastermind group. Not only am I'm getting value, but I'm adding value. Some things that I do. We're in a virtual roundtable. I am going out and asking for help, asking for their wisdom, because they've already walked the talk, such as Franklin Roosevelt. One of the things that my mentor, who grew up, he opened his businesses back in the 30s during the Depression, he called upon Franklin Roosevelt and his mindset, because he was always optimistic. He would go on these radio, fireside chats on the radio and be positive during a world war and a depression. So he adopted that as his mindset, and he taught me how to always have an optimistic perspective, which is one of his business principles he taught me.
I love that. I love the concept of the virtual roundtable. Again, it's not something that I thought about, at least in that way. I think we read books and we admire people, and we may say, oh, I admire someone's strength or their courage, but don't necessarily take that next step and say, how can I model that particular trait that I admire so much so that I can have that too. So I love the concept. I love that you shared it in the book. Now we're going to talk a little bit about your unhabit. And you say that we need to unhabit the not paying attention to our health. So how does one go about doing that?
Well, and I'm very guilty of this. I think there's a lot of people who are guilty. They just let their health go, right? They think they're healthy, things are going well, right? And all of a sudden something hits you across the face. And unfortunately, sometimes things like cancer may hit you in front of the face, or you may have a heart attack, but that didn't happen to me. I was working out, and I felt, I was an athlete, right? And I got done playing athletics, and I was working out, and I felt that I was physically strong and, had energy and everything else. But same thing happened on the Miracle. Something happened on the Miracle on the Hudson, and I went to the hospital, and my blood pressure was so out of control. And yes, it was a traumatic experience, and that was something that definitely contributed to that. But it didn't come down, and it was stay there. And they couldn't figure out why it was, and all of a sudden they realized I had high blood pressure. So I had to do something about that. So I all of a sudden realized through a traumatic life event called a plane crash that I had a health situation. Maybe that's the reason I was on that plane. I don't know. Maybe that was just to slap me across the face and say, hey, you know what? Get your health in shape. But then it went to another step, and that's what really shocked me, and when I really had to get myself under control, because I let so many little things go, and because I was so focused on other things, right? I was focused on financial wealth and taking care of my family and things like that, my business, where I got my blood pressure under control, yay, and all of a sudden though, I was having issues in my knees. And I also had an incident that happened when I was speaking on stage in Missouri, and all of a sudden my knee collapsed. And it's like, I had knee problems. I'm getting older, but it's not that big a deal. But what I found out is my blood sugar was so high and my circulation was not doing well. And if I didn't lose weight, I had to do something. I had to get knee replacement. And that meant I was going to be out of commission for 2 to 3 months. And I couldn't have had. So from going from blood pressure to going on stage to having a situation happen forced me to get my health under control. So I think one of the things I talk about, and one thing you unhabit, is unhabit those bad traits that you have that you don't think you have any problems. Unless you're a world-class athlete with 4% body fat and things are just, you have a regimen, everybody can improve. And that's one of the things that I would say. You look back on it, I'm now happy that it happened during the plane crash, because if that hadn't happened, I may not be here today.
Right. Well, I hate to say happy you were on the plane too, but that you're here. I've gotten a chance to meet you and be inspired by you. I want to say, in another interview that I've had with another contributor, she talked about doing things out of desperation or inspiration. So how can you, in your change and need to address your health, came out of desperation, right? It was hitting you squarely in the face. And if you didn't do anything, you could not be here. How can someone take what you've gone through and use that as inspiration to sort of make the changes and not wait to the point where they are forced to have to make the change?
Well, thank you very much for asking. 'Cause I think what happened that day for me and 150 for other people, I think the reason that the story still goes on is because it gives people hope. That, if you look back at what was happening in 2009, there wasn't a lot of positive things happening. The stock market was down. The housing market was down. There was a new president coming in, but there was a lot of uncertainty about that likewise, right? I mean, no one knew what was going to happen. And all of a sudden you had something positive happen in the busiest city at the busiest time. And I think this is my personal perspective. Maybe this is something that's a greater being. So, you know what? Let me show you what hope looks like. And I think this story is really about inspiration. That if you have faith and you pull together as a team and you lead yourself first, look what can happen. Look at not only you can survive, but you can thrive. So I think this story what happened to me and 150 other people is really a story of inspiration, saying, even through the bad times, if you stay positive and work together as a team and take care of yourself first and have, pull the people around you that can help you, you too can not only survive, but thrive.
And that's a good point, because we find ourselves in a situation like 2009, right? It's on a global scale where things, were going well one day and then, life is upended, as we're, navigating through this COVID situation. How can you still use what's going on now to just do that one little extra push so that we can look at this time as a time of inspiration as well?
Thank you. I wrote a blog a couple of weeks ago. It's about stuck in the doorway, because right now I think it's like you said, like back in 2009, there's a lot of people that are stuck in their doorway. Am I going to go backwards or can I go forwards? I don't know what to do. It's called the stage of liminality, where you're in that stage of transition, but you don't know quite what's going to happen, and you don't know what you're going to do. So I've always been taught, and my mother was a great inspiration. You can do anything. You put your mind to it, right? So I'm always about taking action. So right now, I'm really trying to help people who are going what I call through their own personal plane crash moments, and really sharing the strategies. And the first strategy that I talk about is the meaning you attach to something produces the emotion of your life, and emotion is your life. So it's the meaning you attach to this is going to determine what direction you're going to go. And if you just say, this is a travesty, this is horrible, I'm broke, I don't know what I'm going to do, well, the meaning you're attaching is negative, and therefore you're probably not going to advance. But if you say, this has given me time to be with my family, and now I have the opportunity to grow, I may not have any money, but now I've got to get resourceful in how to do it. All of a sudden, you're opening your mind and your creative mind, and innovative mind, and you're starting to grow. So right. I now talk about really, because I think we're all in this personal plane crash together. Everybody's going through it. It doesn't matter what part of the world you're in, right. Everybody is going through it. So what can we do to advance? And the first thing is have the appropriate meaning attached to it. And, I chose to attach the meaning. This is a great opportunity to grow, just like I did after my personal plane crash. And how am I going to do it? I'm going to use the same strategies I did last time and hope trying to take off and stay out of the water.
I love that. I love that. So Dave, do you have any final parting words you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, the last thing I like to share is I'll just use the aviation sort of terminology. Is right now we all need to learn how to aviate, and what aviate means is keeping your personal plane in the air as long as you can. So instead of looking at going down, just like that day in 1549, he kept the plane up as long as he could. But the second thing we all have to do now is navigate. We've got to get a focus on what is our game plan, and the way you do that is you got to be resourceful. It all starts with being resourceful, because there's a lot of people now that don't have resources. But it's not about the resources you don't have. It's about how resourceful you are with what you have. And the third thing is, and this is one thing I'm really focused on, and I've struggled with in the past, Whitney, but I'm really focused on it, is communicating effectively. And I've now made it a must to contact 5 people a day, just to contact people. Stay in communication. Focus on how I can serve them first and being served. Aviate, navigate, and communicate.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to hashtag that. Aviate, navigate, communicate. Great. Thank you very much, Dave, for joining us. And if you have not gotten your copy of the One Habit for Success book, please get it. The link is in the post, and you will have the opportunity to not only read Dave's chapter dealing with the virtual roundtable and putting your health first, but the habits of 29 other people who have great habits that if you just take one, let it change your life and then move on to the next, you'll find that you'll look over the course of the next month, 6 months, a year, that you won't recognize the life that you're living. So thank you all for joining us. Dave, once again, thank you very much for stopping through. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Whitney.
All right.